So President Biden is attacking Republicans once again over a possible increase, or, as he says, a decrease. But what is he really discussing? Well, what we know is that President Biden is attacking Republicans over Social Security. Social Security has always been one of the most important and most talked about programs currently that the United States runs. And why shouldn't it be? It provides relief for more than 66 million people. This is a huge program, but the worry is that this could become insolvent, which would mean every single Social Security recipient would get about 20 to 22% less for their monthly benefit. That would be devastating to millions of people because for millions and millions of Americans, they rely on that payment as pretty much 100% of their income. That's crazy. But this is where Republicans are saying that this is creating a problem because President Biden is attacking Republicans over his promise to provide an increase to Social Security recipients. But Democrats, according to President Biden, Democrats want to provide more. Republicans are promising to make cuts. But that may not be 100% true. Now, I will get to that in just a moment. First, all I ask is if you can do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and do it if you want to see more videos on Social Security and how what happens with Social Security could actually impact you and your finances. Now, let's talk about the latest news surrounding Social Security. According to the White House, they say Republicans are about to attack Social Security. And that they say this because Speaker Kevin McCarthy just announced that he actually wants to create a congressional committee, actually a bipartisan congressional committee to look into the broader deficit and debt reduction. Because he says this is something that we did not get to look into when we were discussing the debt ceiling. They looked into about 11% of the budget. All the rest was not looked into and went untouched. Now, Speaker Kevin McCarthy stated last week that the biggest contributors to our nation's debt is Medicare and Social Security. And so because of him coming out and saying this, everybody is saying that he wants to cut Medicare and Social Security. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, this may sound like we're bound to see cuts, but again, it's not necessarily true. Republicans are looking at ways to decrease our deficit. And being that Medicare and Social Security cost the most, that is an obvious starting point. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's a starting point. For, I run, multiple businesses. If I am seeing that one of my businesses is not as profitable as it used to be, I'm going to look at my budget. I'm going to see, what our sales looking like, what our expenses are looking like, and I'm going to determine, where could we cut costs. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what our costs are, what are all of our expenses, and they're going to be pretty much in order of what's the most expensive to least expensive. It doesn't mean I'm going to make cuts to the most expensive cost, but that's just the way you look at it. Okay? Keep in mind, I'm not saying we are not going to see cuts at all, but I'm just saying that is what we are expecting. Okay? To look into again, a bipartisan congressional committee to look into the broader deficit and debt reduction. That's the goal. And just keep this in mind. Democrats holding the majority in the Senate and the presidency, this is unlikely to happen that we are ever going to see a cut, especially when there is a split Congress. I just don't see it happening. So where do we go from here? And what are we going to expect? Well, Republicans have stated that they can't get behind corporations and the wealthy paying more in taxes to accommodate additional revenue for these programs. It makes sense. Democrats are pushing it. Let's tax more, and then we will give that money away. At the same time, Democrats are saying that this is their starting point. They want to start here. So Republicans saying that they want to create this bipartisan congressional committee to look into deficit and debt reduction, That's their starting point. Democrats are saying that no, they want to start with taxing the rich and taxing large corporations. That's where they want to start. So both parties have stated where they plan to start, but this is where the fight continues. Okay? Now I want to be clear on one thing. And again, we know this is going to happen. We are going to get closer to this negotiation phase. And as we do, once this starts to happen, we're going to have a better idea of where some lawmakers currently stand. Right now, the majority of lawmakers have not come out and publicly stated where they're standing as far as Social Security, as far as taxes, right? Because of that, it's very difficult to know how much support we currently have with certain bills. But as of right now, I do expect certain things to happen. I don't expect cuts to Social Security. What I expect to happen, though, is everybody is going to need to pay a little bit more in taxes in order to keep Social Security and Medicaid from becoming insolvent. But if we have to pay more in taxes, expect something else to happen. We are expecting that corporations, right, businesses are going to start to receive some additional cuts, some tax cuts. That is where we could see cuts to Social Security, where corporations are not having to pay as much. Because again, if Democrats want to ensure that Social Security remains solvent for the next 25, 50, 75, 95 years, that's extremely important. But Republicans are also fighting for businesses. Because you know what's happening right now? We have a fight over Social Security, but at the same time we have a fight over Social Security, we are trying to figure out, are we going to experience a soft landing within the economy, or are we going to dip into a recession? If we dip into a recession and we see this economic slowdown, Republicans are going to be fighting for businesses. They're going to be fighting for to try to turn this around to get our economy just booming again. It may not happen overnight, but it's going to take some time. And when it does, this is where bringing in those additional tax cuts, okay, try to incentivize businesses to hire additional employees. This is what's going to happen. And this is going to be extremely important, especially the timing of all this. So as of right now, the most likely scenarios to save Social Security and Medicaid are the following. To raise the full retirement age past age 67, because again, people are living longer. But just keep this in mind, the talk is not about raising the full retirement age past age 67 immediately. No. For people that are, let's say, 20, 30, maybe 40 years old, yes, we could potentially increase it from 67 to maybe 68, 69, or age 70. But again, people are living longer. They're usually able to work longer. They also say we need to increase the payroll tax or tax cap, because something else that's happening is people are working, are able to live longer. But at the same time, they're actually working less years than ever before. Some are trying to retire earlier. Some can't work because of physical conditions. So yes, we are living longer, but we're not able to work as long as we used to. Some also say that we are experiencing a major shift, because what's happening to a lot of people, especially younger women, is they are starting their careers, but then in the middle of their career, they are then taking some time off to go and raise a family. And this is actually causing them to make less money, which means they are not contributing to Social Security, which impacts those that are currently collecting Social Security benefits. And in the future, once that person decides to finally retire and collect their benefits, they're not going to get as much. So again, the discussions are there. There's a lot of things happening for Social Security at this time. The only problem is, which direction do we go? What we do know is President Biden is big on bipartisan bills. So because of this, and him being big on a bipartisan bill, no matter what, it makes me it makes me think that we are not going to see any type of partisan bill. It's not going to be a Democratic bill. It's not going to be a Republican bill. It will be a bipartisan bill for Social Security, which means it's going to be something in the middle. But let me know your thoughts on everything that's going on with Social Security. If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I will see you guys on the next one.